In 2020, Airbnb became one of the most popular real estate investments.
When it works, honestly, it's a dream. It's pretty passive income and you still get to use your house essentially for free. Who wouldn't want that? So people did it. A lot of people.
The number of Airbnbs grew dramatically.
It was not like that a year ago.
And post-COVID, people were eager to travel. So for a while, it worked great, and there was a gold rush to Airbnb. It really was the perfect storm for hosts, and people made a lot of money.
We made roughly about $175,000.
We're on track to gross $1 million this year.
But like they say, nothing lasts forever.
And since 2020, a lot has changed.
Is Airbnb about to collapse?
The amount of people that are booking that is the concern here.
Inflation is causing a decline in bookings.
Airbnb superhosts say bookings have declined due to the increase.
The economy, supply and demand, interest rates, it's a completely different ballgame. In certain circumstances, Airbnb can still be a good investment long term, but I do think for most people, it just doesn't make sense anymore.
So we're gonna talk all about why I don't think getting into Airbnb in 2023 is a smart investment. For context, I'm an Airbnb host myself in Palm Springs. I've had my house up for about a year, and the earnings were not as good as I expected. And at the end, I'll go over a couple scenarios where it still might be a good investment to get into Airbnb.
The first reason is that it's much more expensive to get started than it used to be.
A lot of you guys probably know interest rates rose quite a bit this year, from 2 to 3% to now about 6%. And that means that your monthly mortgage is gonna be a lot higher. So let's take, for example, my house. I purchased it in 2020 for about $750,000. Our interest rate was a little under 4%. Our monthly mortgage with taxes and homeowners insurance is $3,400.
But let's see what those numbers would look like with today's interest rates. Assuming the same purchase price, so the same $750,000 house at a 6% interest rate would now give you a monthly payment of $4,597. But here's the crazy thing, prices are up too. In the last 2 years, the average home price has gone up 40%.
If you bought this property today for $1.2 million and put down 20%, your monthly mortgage would be about $6,500. That's about double what my mortgage is, so you really see the power of interest rates. And with my experience renting my house on Airbnb in a full year, those numbers just wouldn't work. You would not be able to break even. Like we didn't even break even at my interest rate, you know?
So unless you're buying in cash and can find a killer deal, the interest rates really make it tough for the numbers to make sense.
The next reason is that bookings are down pretty much across the board. It would be one thing if you got a mortgage that was higher and nightly rates were up and bookings were sky high, but that is not the case right now. You guys know that I've seen with my Airbnb personally, bookings have really slowed down, and it's not just me. A lot of hosts are opening up about this across many different locations. It's not just Palm Springs, it's kind of everywhere.
Specifically the Smoky Mountains, Eugene, Oregon, North Georgia mountains, and South Florida, and I'm sure many more markets, bookings are dramatically down.
I've even noticed some of the Airbnbs that I've made checked in episodes about that are really cool and really unique are slower than they used to be. I have seen one exception to this though, and that is in areas where you can't get a rental contract anymore.
I've been following this guy Rohan on Twitter, and his have still been doing so well that he wasn't sure if it was a rumor or not. However, what I realized about his properties is they're pretty much all in areas where you can't get a new rental permit anymore.
Because the supply hasn't gone crazy in these areas, it seems like his rentals still do really well there. When they're pretty normal looking houses, they're nothing crazy or unique really, besides his New Mexico one is very cool. The big thing is that there is a limited supply in these areas.
But all of these other markets that allowed short-term rental permits in the last few years, we're seeing they're flooded with supply, and so of course bookings are down. AirDNA reported a 24% year-over-year increase in Airbnb listings. That's a huge increase, which would definitely have an effect on bookings.
I mean, it really makes sense. We are in more of a recession, going into a recession, whatever this is at the moment. The fact of the matter is people are spending less money on Airbnbs. And so I think if you're looking for this really good cash flow in the next year, you're probably not gonna find it. Another reason is what I like to call Airbnb resentment. A lot of people just really hate Airbnb now for two main reasons.
The first is that they've had a bad experience with Airbnb. A lot of people are annoyed with the fees, the checkout lists, and there are a lot of really bad Airbnbs out there.
Airbnbs tend to be less consistent in terms of quality than hotels.
And while there are a ton of amazing Airbnbs out there, the bad ones have really damaged Airbnb's entire reputation.
At this point, almost everyone that travels frequently has tried Airbnb, and a lot of these people have not had a good experience at some point. And these people, they're going back to hotels. Unless they're booking for a big group and it's cheaper to stay in a house, people are really moving back to hotels.
And the second type are people that have a resentment towards Airbnb's overall effect on the housing market.
It's no secret that Airbnbs have an effect on the overall housing supply. If you buy a house and you turn it into an Airbnb, it is taking it off the market for someone to live in long term or to own. When I first started my Airbnb journey, no one was really talking about this. No one commented it on my videos, but now people are aware of it and they don't like it. In reality, there are so many factors that affect the housing market. Airbnb is probably a pretty small role in it because cities that don't even allow Airbnbs still have ridiculously expensive housing.
Let's take Seattle, for example. From what I found online, there's 367,000 homes here. And AirDNA reports there's about 6,000 Airbnbs. So that means only 1.6% of homes are Airbnbs.
Just regular old landlords, institutional investors, zoning laws, the fact that builders haven't really built as much in the last 20 years, all of these things affect the housing crisis. But Airbnb definitely does too. I'm not going to deny that. And it has become like the #1 thing people are pointing the finger at right now. So I do think this affects where people want to spend their money and maybe less on Airbnb. All right, despite all this, I do think there are still a couple scenarios where it could be a good investment. Only a couple though, okay? Otherwise, I just think for most people, it's just not. The first one is anyone that's able to buy a property in cash. I know, it's probably like literally one person watching. If you're able to buy in cash, then interest rates are irrelevant to you. And that is one of the main things that makes Airbnbs just not make sense right now. Bookings still would be down, and I don't think there would be some amazing cash flow in the next couple years. But if you're buying in cash, that's not going to be a huge deal to you. And I think that in 5 to 10 years, things will pick back up again, and you're going to be just fine in the meantime. So it could be a good place to park your money. But who really knows, right? The other scenario where I still think it could be a good investment is if you plan to hold a property for a very long time and you plan to use it a lot yourself. I mean, this is really where I'm at with my Airbnb. I want to hold it for a long time and I do use it a lot myself, so it just breaking even is, I'd be thrilled with that, you know? If you have like this dream location that you know you've always wanted and you're able to afford it, but you want to use Airbnb to offset most or some of the costs, then I think that is a realistic way to go about it in 2022. And then maybe by 2025, bookings will be back up. This one, I think it could still be an okay investment. I don't think it's going to be a stellar investment, to be honest. Gone are the days of buying just a normal home like this in an area that you don't even like and putting it on Airbnb just to make a quick buck. If you can afford it and you actually want to use a place a lot yourself, I still think, yeah, Airbnb could be a good way to offset a lot of those costs. And then 5 to 10 years from now, who knows? It might be profitable again if we're out of a recession. Some years are going to be really good. Some years might be a little slower. So that's pretty much it. Those are kind of the only scenarios where I think it sort of makes sense. But even these, I don't think it's that good of an investment. You could just put your money somewhere else and maybe make more. One last thing I want to note is that this is just my own personal opinion, right? It's based on my experience and also research I found online. I'm completely honest with you guys because I truly have no incentive for you to do Airbnb. I really don't care if people do it or not. And that's why I am so open about sharing the highs and the lows, making money, but also not always making money. I think you should keep this in perspective when you're doing research on Airbnbs in general. I really trust when people show their numbers for the entire year. A lot of what I see on YouTube now is people still promoting Airbnb. I think their properties might not be as profitable anymore either. One example, there is a guy, Sean, who has made a few videos about me, and no shade to him, whatever, like, but he is still often promoting doing Airbnb, probably, I think because he has a course that he sells for like $500 on how to do Airbnb. So there is some incentive there to promote Airbnb, to get people to want to do it. But his calendars look pretty empty, and he's even talked about that in some more recent videos.
I went through a bunch of his listings, and there is like almost no bookings at all for many of these properties. And almost all of them are priced under $100 a night. I don't know how he could possibly not be losing money, honestly. I think the strategy he does actually used to work really well, but it doesn't anymore.
So I would keep that in mind when you're watching some of these other YouTubers who are really promoting it, because it could be that they're promoting it because they have an incentive. It could be that they're promoting it because it genuinely is still working for them and it just, I suck at it. That could be, I don't know. But I think in general, just be cautious, because even if someone is selling a course that is genuinely really good information, it might be that it's a little too late, I think. I think there are some courses that are out there that are probably really good, and if you had purchased it 2 years ago, would have made you a lot of money. But now, just with the circumstances that everything are at, I don't know if they really would. And that is why I gotta be honest in saying that the Airbnb bust is real. Also a note, because I know a lot of people are gonna say, so are you still doing the Joshua Tree property? And I am still planning on doing that. I think that is kind of the third exception, is if you're building new construction, it's possible for the numbers to still make sense. And I would have to get into that in like a whole separate video. But I just think really, yeah, I think honestly for the vast majority of people, Airbnb just isn't gonna make sense in 2023. I'm learning along the way, and I'm just kind of sharing my findings, what I am honestly finding. So if you appreciate it, again, would love if you hit the like button and subscribe. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.